Well guys, that was all very interesting. Apparently my stream stopped. Right, well that all went to crap. I just realised after explaining everything there that my stream had stopped. Are you there, Mr. Spock? And if you are, let me know where we got to. Yeah, we're having thunderstorms, but it didn't actually tell me that it had stopped. I just noticed when I clicked on the tab and it said new stream, and I was like, I didn't finish the old stream. Anyway, where did we get to before we died? Let me know. Are you there, Mr. Spock? Right, okay, so I might not have got to where we were, so I'll show you again. Right, so this is all text, okay? These are all text blocks, right? But we don't know where they exist. Hey, Kofi. So we don't know where these exist within this widget, okay? Now, this is actually a rather simple one, right? Because obviously they're all at the first level under a horizontal box, right? But the problem is that they could be drilled right down. It could be like horizontal box, horizontal box, vertical box, and then the text, okay? Now, the only way we could kind of do this any other way is turn every single text box into a variable, right? But that's not very efficient. Plus, we need to name we need to set them all to the text. Okay, what we want to do is get the widget to tell us which ones are text boxes, okay? So, the way we do that is, I'll show you this bit first. So, we basically set up all our widget, okay? Our standard stuff. And then at the end, I've done a function, right? And that function, add color to text, okay? And we pass it in the very first panel, our root panel, okay? So we're basically telling it where to start. Now, this is the bit of recursion. So we come in here and we say, okay, main panel, tell us all your children. Right, now, the reason we've got to recurse is because the panel only tells us the first level of child. Okay? So, with that in mind, it is only going to bring back this horizontal box, this one, and this one. Right? So at this point, we still don't have a link to our text boxes, okay? So to represent this better, I'll show you what I mean, right? So this is the first level of get all children, right? So if we say get all children of VB main, it brings back this horizontal box, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Okay? But what we need to do is drill down again. So how do we do that? Well, we get all our children, then we ask it if it's a panel or not, and if it is a panel, we tell it to call itself with this function. Okay? So basically it's going to pass in the first horizontal box, right? And then it's going to jump back to here. And then it's going to say, okay, horizontal box, what children do you have? Right? So we can look at this and we can say, right, it's jumped into here and said, oh, I'm on this horizontal box and I've called this function. And then it will say, okay, what are the children of that horizontal box? And the children are these two text boxes, right? So it's going to say get all children, and it's going to say, are you a panel widget? And it will say no. Are you a text box? Yes, I am. Color it. Then it's going to go to the next text box. It's going to say, are you a panel widget? No. Am I a text box? Yes. Color it. Right? Then it's going to go, so it's done this part. So it'll now go back to doing this one because it goes back to the initial loop, right? And then it's going to say, are you a horizontal box or a panel widget? And it's going to say yes. And then it's going to say the same thing again. It's going to do it recursively for the second horizontal box. And that is why if I... Now remember, when I show you this example here, that this is the code. That's it. Nothing else. There's no fancy dance stuff anywhere else, right? But when I do a research widget, right? If I do a research building, because that's the example I'm showing here, right? So when I click on this, you'll notice the text is red. Okay? Now, if I give us some research and close that, click on here, you'll notice all of our text is red. And that's the recursion working. Okay? I hope you guys understood that. So there we go. So you can apply this to anything, by the way. You can apply it within an actor, right? Not necessarily for a widget. You can do it as like a series of components or whatever, right? That you can drill down and say get child. Then you can say, is the child the same type of child? Then if it's not, then do something. If it is, then drill down again, so that you can basically get to the end of a tree, right? Now I'm doing it specifically this way because I know that I'm just drilling down panels and I'm looking for a specific text box, okay? But that'll work for everything. That's how you do stuff in normal computing programming. When you're drilling down through like a tree view or whatever, that's how you do it, okay? So, now we begin with splitters and combiners. And here we go. Right, so I'm not too sure how bugged this will be at this point. Right, but I'm sure we'll soon find out. Mañana. So we shall build our miner. Now, the recursion stuff is working on this as well, so I'll show you that when we do it, right? But we are going to do a refinery in the meantime. But we are going to right, so we're going to save this. So I've saved it, hopefully. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually do a will we do a combiner or a splitter? Let's do a splitter, right? So you'll see these lines flashing out of it, and that is me checking round about to see if these line traces hit anything, then it won't let me build it there, right? So we have our splitter. Okay, and maybe red isn't the best colour for these now. We haven't got an error yet, which is kind of nice. But we're going to try and we're going to combine this up now. So what we're going to do is we're going to build it here. And I don't think you've ever seen this. Most of the people, probably if they're new to this, will never have actually seen a splitter in operation. Right, and even I don't know if it's going to work. It did, but I've made a lot of changes. Right, so what we could actually do here is we could build another refinery here. Right, and we can actually build that there. Okay, and now what we can do is we can actually make another there. And now you can see that they're being split. Pretty cool, huh? And if we want to be super cool about it, we could actually build another one here. Right? We can spin this one around. And then we can do this. Then we can do this. And there we go, it splits now into 3. Hey Dante, how you doing, mate? So we've now got this splitting into 3. Okay, so it's feeding all of our refineries there. So you'll notice that these are kind of spread out now quite a lot, because obviously they're getting fed in here, and then one's going to each of the different splines or conveyor belts. Right? And now what we can do is we can make a combiner. Right? So a combiner basically works the other way around. So if we make it here, it's going to take it in from these 3 different directions, and then it's going to pump it out here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it's levelly detail. It's automatically done in Unreal Engine. LODs are automatically done. Right, so what I can do is, this is what I'm worried about, that's not going to work. And that worked. Right, so we have our combiner now. Right, and this is where things get a bit crazy. What we can do is we can join this one up to here, and that's went a bit weird. Don't worry about that, guys. I wasn't 100% sure that was going to work, but it is actually working. It's just this weird bit here, so we're not going to worry about that too much. What we're worried about is if it actually does what it's supposed to do. It's actually not, because you'll notice it's not. The barrels are still moving at the same speed. Right, you'll see the barrels are, it's actually the spline that's not quite right. It's not drawing the correct size of spline. Well, it's drawing the right size of spline. Now the interesting thing here is, you'll notice there's a spline disappeared here. Don't know why that was and when it happened, but anyway. We'll put that back. Right. And then finally what we'll do is, well, that's a bummer. Right, for some reason I'm cancelling being able to turn the camera when you're building a spline, which I need to fix, but that's the purpose of today. We need to find out what's exactly not working. Yeah, that went a bit wrong. But the main thing is that you can now see that this is putting the barrels 2 by 2. So it is combining them, right? So our barrels are actually working. but there's some weird thing going on with this, right? This calculation, this spline calculation isn't right. And this time it worked for some reason. And off come the barrels, right? So the spline thing needs a little bit of work here because it's obviously still, well, this was because it screwed up the first time, but we need to figure that one out. But where's our barrels here? Here they come. And you should now see them getting bumped onto the, once they get round. Where are they? Hurry up. And we should now see them coming in 3 by 3. And there we go. Okay, but that gives us a little issue because these are getting placed on top of each other, so we can fix that. But these seem to be working. There's still a problem with it calculating the spline in all directions, but fundamentally our combiner and splitter are working. Right? What do you guys think? Pretty cool, huh? Right, so knowing that our splitter and our combiner are still working, our problem is that we know that now, as we'll be able to see, we've got 431 ore, and it's going up quite a lot, quite fast. But I'm not 100% sure on the maximum for the warehouse. Right. Now, it's got a comp input. But it doesn't got have a S supply because it goes in, doesn't go into that particular device. Okay. So now I did kind of think we were going to have some problems here. Right. I'm not going to worry too much about this. Let me have a look at that one more time. Set rotation. So apparently we haven't got a rotation. Now, I'm going to say that that error came from the first time that I laid down the track and it didn't connect, right? Yes, you can. But it isn't quite done like that. There's lots of settings you can do for the LOD, right? You can set it up manually, or a lot of the assets come with a LOD set up, right? If you open up, like, let me have a look for something that would be relevant. Right. Like, say for example, this barrel, right? If I double click that barrel, it might already... See, the thing is, the Unreal Engine automatically... Right? You'll see it's got LOD auto. So basically, you can allow it to have... You can have as many LODs as you want, right? The level of detail, it basically recalculates it itself in Unreal Engine. It's like one of the features, right? And it will show you what, at LOD 0, how many triangles, how many vertices, right? But you can set this up. And you can set it up to be like at different levels, right? Distance to camera. So, I don't think this has got it set up enough, right? But basically you can set it up of which LOD you want to use at a particular level or distance from the camera, right? And it's got auto compute LOD distances. But you can do this all manually. Like, you can actually set up manually of what level of detail you want at specific distances, right? If you only had 2 camera settings, right, like really close and really far, you'd only set up 2 level of details for each of your meshes, right? One highly detailed and one really low detailed, right? Because obviously if it's in the further away camera position, then you don't want any detail at all because the player can't see it, right? But you'd have it as really high detail if you had a really close camera view, right? Now, obviously in most games, it's going to be dependent on whether it's like a third person view or a first person view or whatever, but you'll see if you check some of your assets, if you've got them bought them or got them off the store or something, some of them will be actually manually set up, right? So that I'll see if I can find something, right? Like possibly this. Like these here, for example. Right, let's have a look at this and see if we can find something. Yeah, it's got 5 LODs. So this has got 5 levels of detail, right? You'll see that there. Now, the interesting thing is that if you notice here, it says triangle 7184 vertices 4197, right? But if I zoom out, and if I can zoom out far enough, this would actually change. And it tells me there I'm on LOD 4. And then I'm on LOD 3, LOD 2. See here? So if I zoom out there, I'm on LOD 3. So it's automatically, dynamically changing the level of detail. Normally you'd have metallic. You don't need a displacement. Normally when you get something out of like Substance Painter, it'll have the base colour, then it'll have the normal, and then it'll have 3 others in one texture. It'll have them on each texture channel. So it'll be occlusion, metal or metallic, and roughness. Okay, so you can see here that this is on LOD 2 at the moment. If I zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, there, it's a LOD 1. Right, so this is the distance from the camera that this will be at LOD 1. And there's LOD 0, right? So there's LOD 0, 1, 2, and you'll notice, right, we're now down at 718 triangles, right? So if we zoom back in, we're at 7,000 at this distance, then we're down to half of that. Now we're down to 1,700. Now we're down to 718. And now we're down to 214 triangles. Right? So that's what? 7 times 4? No, 7 times 5. So that's 35 times less geometry when you go down to LOD 4. Okay? And that's it. It'll stay that size because it's got 5 levels of LOD, and LOD starts at 0 like every other array, blah blah blah. Right? So that's what LOD is. Level of detail. Okay? Right, so anyway, yeah, from earlier on, Mr. Spock, remember how I was telling you, you need to know where the pivot point is? Well, see if you say show pivot, it will show us where the pivot point for this rock is. Right, you can see it in blue there, faint red there. So the pivot point's here. Right? So one way to change a pivot point, which a lot of people don't show you, is that if you change the where it pivots, or sorry, let's say I move the translation of the rock up to be at the base of this pivot, then it's no longer going to pivot in the middle of the rock, it's going to pivot on the bottom point. So that's another way that you can change the pivot point on a mesh. Okay? There are other ways to do it, but that's a pretty simple way to do it. Right, so what you would do is, if I said preview scene, right, and I show the environment, well, let's just show the floor, right? So we've got the floor, right? What I could do is in the details, I could move this so that the rock is actually in line with the pivot point. Okay? Anyway, that's a by the by. But anyway, you can show pivot here so that you know how it's going to rotate. Okay? And that's the LOD. Right, so I think that's because of that error. So I'm not going to worry too much about that for now. And really, now this is all to do with the start and end actor. Okay, because when I was telling the buildings to stop supplying, I needed to know, or the conveyor belt needed to know what was the start actor and what was the end actor, so I could then message the conveyor to then tell the start actor to stop. Right? So let me describe that better by showing you. Okay? Right. So let me draw a conveyor belt and I'll explain what's going to happen here. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a conveyor belt from the miner to our refinery. Right? Now, our refinery is gradually going to fill up, right, until this, our output component, is full, right? So let's say our output component's maximum capacity is 10, okay? So it can hold 10 of the product in its output warehouse, let's say. When that becomes full, what it does is it says, okay, I'm full, stop processing. Okay? And what happens is it stops processing and the stuff starts building up in the input warehouse, right? And the input warehouse also has a maximum capacity. So let's say that's 10. Okay, so they both start at 0, the output fills up to 10 and then says, I can't take any more, stop processing please. Then the stop processing stops taking stuff from the input because it's not processing, and then this starts building up. Okay? Then once this is full, it basically says, hey, wait a minute, stop sending me stuff, I'm full. So basically what that does is it talks to the conveyor belt and says, hey, end the conveyor belt, please stop, which in turn will switch off the miner. Okay? So, let's actually see it working. And that is the point of the start and end actor on the conveyor belt. Because I need to know where is the start and what is connected to the start. Okay? So, we can see that this is sending stuff liberally. Right? It doesn't care. It's just like, yep, I can send this stuff, I'm cool, we're all good and everything's great, we're building stuff, right? Then it comes in here, processing is on because this hasn't told it to stop. So what's happening here is it's going into the in warehouse, the process is removing it from the in warehouse and making a new product. The new product, excuse me, is going into the out warehouse. the house warehouse is now filling up, right? And it's going to come to a point where it says, please stop processing. At which point, nothing is getting taken from here. So this input is just getting filled up. Then when this is filled up, it's going to go say, hey, conveyor belt, the thing at the start of you needs to stop. So it's going to send a message to this to stop. And it's just done it. There it goes. It stopped it. Okay? So they're intelligent inputs and outputs in that they can tell something to stop and start. Right? So this is just going to sit here. Right? Because everything is basically at full. And it's nowhere to go. Right? But what I can do is I could build a smelter. Right? And if I build a smelter, well, what's going to happen? Well, this is going to start emptying. So it's going to say, hey, start processing again. That's fine. I'm just explaining this anyway for anybody that's interested. So this is going to start emptying, which is going to send a message to say, hey, start processing again. We've got space. Then it's going to start taking the stuff from here. This is going to gradually empty down. And when it gets to a certain point, it's going to say, hey, start giving me stuff again. Right? So let's see that happening. Okay. So if we do a conveyor belt, right, we'll see the stuff coming out. Now this is going to take a little, it doesn't happen immediately, right? This has got to get below a certain amount before it starts firing up again, right? But if we do watch now our miner, it is going to start processing again. Trust me, it will start working. And anytime now, anytime now. There it goes. Right. But we need to remember that this one is now filling up. So once that gets filled, the chain is now going to work its way back all the way down the line as everything fills up. Okay? So the interesting one is if we make a fabricator, right? And now you'll notice that it's not allowing anything on here, which means that this is full. Okay? Now we set this up to do like widgets, right? And now what we can do is build it into here. And we can now see that these are going in here. Right, we've got our metal sheets. And now this is started up again. Right, and it won't be long before we see this one starting up again as well. So we're just waiting on this one starting up again. It will, don't worry, it will. All in good time. There it goes. So as you can see, the inputs and outputs of the buildings determine whether they need supply or not, and switch on and off accordingly. Okay, now we should be getting to a point where it's exactly the same for this. Right, that this is going to be full. And in fact, I think it is full at this point because there's nothing on this line. So it has basically stopped the output of this. And then this is going to stop. Right? So we should see everything stopping again. Just shortly. We'll wait for that to happen. And there we go, that one's stopped now. And then the same thing again is going to happen here. And there it has. It's already been told to stop. Okay? So you will see that everything has stopped. And that's because this is full, which has led to this being full, to this being full, to that being full, to this being full, that being full. But we can clear it, right? Because if we do this, we can start everything back up again. Right? If we pull out our widgets, right, and where right, and now we should have widgets coming out. And there it is, there they are, widget, widget, widget. And now everything is gradually going to fire back up. So this one's going, that's fired back up. That's now producing there. Then this has fired back up. And finally our miner should fire back up, and there it goes. Okay? So absolutely everything has gone back up because we are now removing the widgets from its output and putting them on a, you can see them there, right? Widget, 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 widget. Okay? And they're coming down the line. we need to do a bit of tidy up work on these splines. Yep, there's the first of our widgets. Right, now we can check this, right? Because we can check our warehouse to see what's in our warehouse. There's no widgets at the moment. Right? We know there was a widget close there. And there it is. That's the first 2 widgets. 5 widgets. 6, 8 widgets. 11. And there we go. Right, so we have a full chain of production. Now, our miner is working pretty fast, which is why our buildings aren't keeping up. Right? Because I've defaulted that the miner has like 10 workers already. So it's when it pumps out barrels, it's pumping out barrels fast. And basically the refiner can't use them fast enough. Right? So this gets filled up, but you'll notice that it's back on again, right? So everything is processing again at full speed. Okay, and if you look down here, we've still got our widgets coming along the track. And if we check our warehouse, we're now up to 74 widgets produced. 76, 77, 79. And there you go. All good. Okay, so it's hit the subscribe button, check the description for the Discord and the Patreon and my previous game on Steam. It's time for a 2-minute break. I shall be back in a jiffy. Don't go anywhere, guys. Okay, guys, we're back. Now we haven't done anything yet, and that's basically because the splitters and stuff are working. Right now, the only time that really becomes an issue is when, oh, there was one more thing I wanted to try out. Or there was one more thing I wanted to do with this before we do anything. I want to see the storage container working, because I made a storage container. Right? So what we want to do is make sure the storage container stores stuff, which would be a good thing obviously. And then we want to see, that's a metalworks, that's a storage container. Right, so we can put the storage container, right, I don't know why it does all that jumpy shit. Right, are you going to draw or not? Right, so this is input, so we can spin this round again, and we're waiting on that becoming active, which it is. Okay, so yeah, that worked a treat. Did that click on the wrong thing there, I believe? Yeah, that's not exactly working, is it? Is it because it's getting blocked off with these rocks or something? I'm wondering. Right, don't do that, please. Right, so we've got barrels coming in, so that's cool. Now the question is, am I going to be able to bring out and there we go. Lovely, so we have a storage container. That works. Right, so that's a good thing. And I'm just wondering here, I must have made this storage container to be like right, where are you, Mr. Storage? I wonder if you can do that. Yeah, you can. Right, there we go. There's the output splitter. You'll notice it's not got an input splitter. Right? Now where? Right, we've got the comp input. Okay, so this doesn't seem to be how I expect it. They go straight into comp output. Right, so the storage limit is 500, right? And we currently have 51. And I'm wondering if I can change that to 100. If that's going to do anything. Right, so this one has been switched off, right? But I don't know if this is going to switch off our... Right, so this is now full, right? And it stopped this one. So that's exactly what I wanted. So this is recursive as well. This is kind of going back the way. So that's cool. That's kind of what we wanted and kind of not what I expected. Or it might be what I expected from the storage, right? But the problem is that it's not going to be what I expect from a splitter. Right? Because a splitter or a combiner don't exactly work the same. Right? Now let's add our smelter in and join it up to make sure that this fires back up again. But the thing about the storage container is that the storage container is going to have a new information panel where you can actually remove stuff into your inventory. Okay. But we'll just check in the meantime that it does actually work as intended. So this should fire up again at some point. This tends to get pretty full, the input on this. So we're not going to kind of bitch about it too much taking a while to restart, because it's not like it goes to nothing before it restarts, so it's not an issue. And even if it did, it would be a matter of seconds anyway before it fired everything back up. But it should be soon ready to start. And we shall see what happens when it does. There it goes. So our storage container is working absolutely perfectly. The only thing is, what's that? That must be been before I spun it round. Now the interesting thing is, that's not actually lighting up. And I think that might be intentional to start with, but now that I've realised that I need to actually do, you know, a separate info panel for this, that we're going to have to do something with it. But now we know that splitters, combiners and storage containers are working exactly how I want them to, right, we can actually change something that I noticed is a problem earlier on. Now if we click on here, you can see that this is blue, right, which is kind of what we want, right? But the problem is with this one, it's blue, which is kind of what we want. So that one's okay, right? But I'm pretty sure it's the research panel, the research station, that isn't quite right. So I want to get that fixed up first. And while we're waiting on this, remember guys, hit the subscribe button. Check the description for Discord as well if you want to come in and have a chat or whatever. You'll notice that this is red, right, and we don't want that, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to fix it, because we need to fix something, because we ain't fixed anything today so far because, well, everything was working. Right, so if we go to game and building details, we can have a look at this and we can see why the warehouse thing is not, well, actually it should be. You know something, that should have changed colour. I don't understand why this has changed colour. Oh yeah, maybe I actually do. Nope, so it's not in there. And it is in here. So it's in this vertical box. Well, that's interesting. Okay, whatever. Right, what we'll do is we'll go into research details and we'll check how this one is done. And it's not that one, it's research station. And bizarrely, this one is done exactly the same way. But what I'm going to have to do is, this hasn't actually been changed either. Right, so this isn't. This isn't going by the correct options. Right, now the thing is, I am guessing it's because this is getting done. And then this is getting done. Except it's not. Unless it's on a timer, which is. Okay, Now we can fix this by going into here and we can do that. Then we can say equals and if it equals the building name, or more importantly, if it's not, so in this case we can do branch and we can say not. Okay, and that should fix our research issue. We'll build it there and check it. There we go. Right, so we're happy with that. So at least I've fixed one thing today. Right. So what we should actually do is we should check the rest of this, right? That's all cool. We could actually say if something's in a button, then don't change it. That's another way we could actually extend this out. Right, so what we could do, right, is for the building details, right, we can go into here, right, and we can say cast to button, and if it fails we go in here. Okay, was that, so that was in building details. Yeah, that's okay, because that's going to work for the miner as well, right? And you'll notice now that these aren't done, right? And in here these buttons aren't done. So if they're enclosed in a button, I don't change the text color. If they aren't, then I do, right? So that's how I've extended that. I can also do it for everything else where I need to, right? But our research station is not updating the different colors for the boxes. Right, so we need to take a look at this. and we've got to change the input background color. And we've got to do this one as well. Right, so let's take a look at this for a second. And it's this setup display. Right. And it's this one here, these two. So, well, actually, yeah, it's these, no, yeah, it's these three. So we can copy them. In fact, it's all of them. So this becomes a function again. How did I learn blueprints? By learning to code first for 20 years, and then just basically knowing what these things represent in code. Right, I ended up doing blueprints because I didn't want, I was working as a programmer at the time, and you get kind of fed up looking at code and text. And I was using Unity at the time, and there's a similar type of thing, but it's nowhere near as good as blueprints. So I thought, yeah, we'll have a go at that just to have a mess about, and I just basically learned how to do stuff. But it's all just logic. You know, the blueprints aren't in themselves. You don't learn blueprints because it's just all logic flow, right? The only way you're really learning blueprints is learning the nodes of what they do. Right, so we go in here, we go to the graph, we're going to add, and this is going to be set up display colors. And then we set this to a variable called blur. Compile that. Then we can paste this in. And that's that. We can save that. Go back to designer. Go to the graph. Go to event graph. And we just drag this in. Jobs are good. And that's going to do our options for us that the player has picked for the colors. Okay? So that's that done. And updated for the research graph or the research station. Okay? So there's that, but what I need to do is do the renaming thing. When we rename the station or the building. Now there was something else I was going to do, but I can't remember what it was. It was a quickie again. Not 100% sure. Right. So here was my thinking, okay? Or let me show you the problem. What I was going to have a look at today. And I thought I'd have bigger problems with the combiners and splitters. I didn't think they would be working as well as they are. But the problem with them is, and it's again easier to demonstrate by showing you. That's an interesting one. Right, I'm thinking in my head at the moment through the problem. Okay, so I'll show you I'll put, this is a splitter, okay? So if we look at the splitter, so I don't know which is the best way to look at it from. Probably from here, right, okay, we can look at it from here. So imagine, let me turn this round because it will make more sense. Right, imagine we have 3 mines, okay? Sorry, okay, we have this mine, okay, and it's going into here. Then we have 3 refiners, okay? Now, say this one becomes full, right? Now, that doesn't mean that we want to switch off this one, okay? Right, because this is also feeding this here, these 2 here. Let me just actually put them in. I don't know if I'll have enough resources to actually do this, but we'll try. Right. We can do this. So let me demonstrate the problem here. That's the wrong thing. Right, so we draw to here, right? So we're connected to this one. Okay, now if I do a couple of these, and yeah, we've kind of screwed up. We can't, right, that's what I need to fix. I need to fix that. That is really important because this is screwing me up for testing this, right? Because I can't select something on the other side now. Well, I could. Right, but this is obviously not ideal, right? Not ideal. Now, here's the funny thing, right? This is going to work if I go past this. What's this, right? If I go past that, it works. It's not tidying it up properly, but it is working, right? So my calculations for if it's going plus or if it's going negative aren't quite right, okay? Anyway. Now, I kind of know why that is, actually. Alright, so I'm really going to have to do the calculations on that one. Right, anyway. Point being, if this becomes full, that doesn't mean that this is full, right? So we may not want to switch off this, okay? Now, if this went directly into here, we obviously do want to switch it off, right? But in a splitter, what we actually want to turn off is not a building. We want to turn this conveyor belt off, as far as the splitter is concerned, right? So what we're going to have to do is for each of your different splitters, or each of your different connections to the splitters, we need to switch them off, right? We need to make these active or inactive, okay? That is the point here. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have to check out why the Q and R aren't rotating, okay? So for that, I'm pretty sure these are in the controller. So we'll have a look in the controller first of all. Okay. That's rotate. That's not rotate the camera. Right? So what we'll do is we'll double click on that. That's on building placement. Right, so if we are okay, have a nice evening or whatever, Dante, and thanks for popping by and hope to see you again. So if we're on add to spline, we want to I'm not sure about anything else, but we'll do that for now, and we'll check this. So if we put a splitter down, right, and then we spin this around, right, we should be able to do that and still spin around. Yep, we can. But we couldn't at the start, which isn't so good. Right? So that would suggest that we need it there. And we need it here. It would also suggest that we need it here. Okay? So I'm kind of getting to the point where I would imagine it's going to be everywhere barring building placement and something else, right? So there's not really a reason for not doing it. So we can do that, right? Then, see, we can't do it now. And there's not really a reason why we shouldn't be able to. So that's going to be in buildings game mode as well. So we shall just test this as we go here. Right, so we are in connectors now, and we can't spin it, and there's no reason why. So in conveyors, we won't be, you can't do it in when you're in research, right? That makes sense, because you're in the research window and you don't want your keys messing any of that other stuff up. Now, as far as probe and grid go, well, let's do it. Let's plug them in and see what happens. Okay. And remove as well, should be fine. There's no reason why we don't have it in remove. But basically we need to move this now down a bit, out the way. Okay, so we need to move this up a bit first. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. Alright, I can live with that. So, we should be able to spin it around anytime we want now, pretty much. There's only going to be one or two that makes sense that we can't spin the screen around. Right, so we should be like, yep, that's fine. Now, let's see. Yep, that's fine. Right. So we want to spin that around. And we really want it on the right mouse thing. So we could do an override on this, but for the moment we won't. Right, so if we select here, we should be able to still spin it, which is right. If we click here, we should still be able to click it and spin it, which is right. We should still be able to spin around, which is right. Yep, that's cool. And if that's short, then it screws up. Right, so let me do that again and I'll show you it working, right? Because if I go past it, it's going to be okay, but it's going to leave this bit here, which is bad, right? But at least we know what the problem is. Okay, at least we know what the problem is. And we can still spin around, which is good. Right, so that was a couple of issues that really were bugging me, which I never got around to fixing. And on that, guys, I'm going to wrap up the stream because I'm going to have to work on this. I'm going to have to work on the spliner, right? Now, I know where it is. Let's have a look, right? What I'm going to have to do, and I'll probably do it this evening, is to determine how I'm going to fix it. Okay? Now, one of the main issues here is there is a final one called return. No, it's not that one. Draw the final spline. No, it's not draw the final spline. It's tidy up X and Y. Right, this is the point where it basically tries to work out and clean up all the stuff. Right, so if you go past the parallel point, it recalculates the spline points and then joins them back on again, right? And if it's positive or negative, it obviously has to add or subtract a certain number of spline points and get it to join up properly. So this is the part that I need to calculate what it's doing wrong, Okay, so I suggest this is probably the part I'll work on tonight. I'll be streaming again at 8 p.m. Central, and I need to work out. I don't know if I'll do any more work on it in between time. I'll maybe work on something else, but this is the major thing that I need to get working, right? Because without this working, then the game doesn't work. And it seems to be only working properly in one direction, right? If you noticed, I could tell you what direction it worked in, right? So we can basically make it fail and then find out which direction it is that needs fixed. Okay? So with that, if you enjoyed the stream, guys, hit the subscribe button, check out the description. In the description is the Discord. If you want to pop into Discord, have a chat, get some answers, questions to answers or whatever. If you're working with Unreal Engine, you can check out my Patreon and also my previous game on Steam. So thanks for joining and hope to see you again soon. Bye bye for now.